Yeah.
See, Joan
All right,
there
we're,
last night.
we're going out.
Yeah.
All right.
Going live.
I didn't see
guys.
too many people though.
But I've
They
been
were
married as long as
behind me
you've been
more.
No.
I didn't look
Sitting
around.
I'm-
up towards
I'm
front
39.
here.
I know.
Man,
That's
second
all
row.
right.
Her mother is 3 years older than me.
It was packed.
I was definitely.
Yeah, that's what they were
Now,
saying.
that's-
Even
we're
the
all on
board
YouTube
members,
now.
they actually had to walk in quite a ways because the parking lot was full. They were saying.
I'm 39.
Guess we're not a big draw, huh?
We should compile a whole video of these like
That's good.
conversations.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
We all set?
I'm set.
Getting there.
So I'd like to call the November 18th, 2021 meeting of the Town of Rochester Board of Appeals, Zoning Board of Appeals to order. We'll start with the pledge. To the flag.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicole, if you could take the roll, please.
Chair Cyrus,
Present.
Mr. Fisher,
Present.
Mr. Behringer,
Present.
Mr. Wassel,
Present.
Ms. Bresler. Present. Ms. Vinton. Then we have the attorney for the town, Mary Lou Christiani, present as well.
Great, thank you. So we're going to go a little different order today. We're going to start with some of the other matters. First is the procedure matter about hybrid remote meeting options that have recently been brought to our attention. So
Right.
Mary Lou, maybe if you can describe it.
So for a while, we're virtual, and then they said, no, we're virtual. Started meeting in person. The governor has an order out that put out a couple months ago that until January 15th, we can meet virtually, but we're also allowed to do a hybrid. If some members want to come in via Zoom and others want to be here, that is allowable. The only thing you have to be sure is that if you're going to do that, if anybody's going to be virtual, or if you want public to be able to speak virtually on public hearings, you have to make sure that things are noticed properly in the legal notice, so they know you can come here, or you can sit at your computer and log on to the Zoom meeting. So I know there were some people who definitely wanted to be here, and some people had expressed they'd prefer not to be in person. So that's an option that's available to the board if you'd like to do that. Up to you.
So I think that's a good compromise for us to consider, that I know some of us have difficulty with connectivity on the internet so that we could come here, and then others would prefer due to the pandemic to remain home rather than be in a larger group. So I would like to make a motion that we adopt a hybrid approach to the meetings for the period that's allowable.
Right. She may
Wait a
extend
minute.
it. We don't
Wait
know.
a minute. How are we gonna see the other ones that are at home? We gonna have a big screen here where we can see them and
We have
talk
a-
to them, or?
We do have a screen here that we can plug into, so I'm more
Okay.
than happy to plug it.
I
My
have a
laptop
laptop
is
as well.
That's
for
a great
the- For
consideration.
the board,
Yeah,
so
otherwise you would,
definitely.
you know, near Charlie, we wouldn't be able to see him.
Right.
I'll second that
Yeah,
motion.
it's important that you be able to see the people.
Okay. So a roll call vote on that.
Okay.
Is there any discussion of it before we vote? Anything further?
This is only good until what, January?
January 15th, unless the
So
governor.
it's good for one
extends
more
it.
meeting, that's it, then, basically.
Right,
on-
unless the governor extends it,
20th.
then it would be, and I suppose. that would
Wait,
probably
it's only
depend
for
on
one
the-
more meeting? It's not?
Yeah,
for-
just for one more.
Right now, the governor's order allows this till January 15th.
It could be extended.
No, not even one more.
At that point. right?
Yeah, one.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
So if he
yeah,
extends
so it
it,
would really only be the December meeting at this time, but you had said so long as it's allowed.
as long as,
So if it's
as long as the
extended,
order is in place, right? So if it's extended, this would extend.
Well, I think the pandemic has taught, at least me, that you don't have to be there to be present always. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and this is, I'm actually the person that's making this happen. If everyone's willing to wear a mask, I would feel differently and we were socially
No.
distanced, I would feel differently, but that people don't want to do that. This is the compromise. And I don't see it as an inconvenience to anybody on this board. But it allows me to participate.
Makes sense.
Any other discussion?
Anything further?
So, Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Ms. Bresler,
Right.
Mr. Berenger,
Aye.
Mr. Boswell.
Aye.
And Chair Sturgis.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna leave now, but so I'll see you guys at the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. And we'll get that information out for the meetings and the things. All right, the second item was a new law from New York State requirement requiring the publication of the documents that we'd be considering at the meeting, such as any motions and things like that, determinations that we're making. So Mary Lee, why don't you?
Okay, did we discuss this last meeting? I thought
We did not.
I don't
No,
remember.
oh,
We did at
okay.
the planning board.
It was planning board.
Yeah.
I've discussed it in so many meetings. I thought we
Yeah.
did this one.
No.
Okay, it used to be that that the state law would get things up as soon as you can, basically, but no timelines. They have changed it to, they would like things to be up on the website 24 hours in advance, so the public can know what's being discussed. So it kind of might make some things, some applications a little bit longer, because you have the public hearing, and then you have time, a few months to make a decision. So maybe after the close of the public hearing, we have to then come up with, a draft decision
You still
before
got
the next meeting, so that we can have it up on the,
You still
the
got the
website.
62 days after the public.
yes, yeah, it doesn't affect the time. We have plenty of time to make a decision, but applicants likely won't be able to have a decision the night that a public hearing is closed. Because of course, sometimes people actually show up for public hearings. So you can't know what that decision's going to be until after you've heard the people. And that's just so that we're in compliance. It's part of the open meetings law.
Okay, good.
Well, I can't get the website at home anyhow, so it don't make no difference to me.
Right.
I can't get it
Well,
no
but
matter what.
you get email, right? So I mean, it
Yeah.
would be emailed to you in advance,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
okay.
right?
Yeah, so
We'll
let's,
start doing that.
Yeah, you're right. In this particular county, it doesn't always
yeah,
do a lot of good
Yeah.
to require things on the
So what-
internet, but
yeah, okay. So we'll make that
We have to-
accommodation that we'll email all the documents that are going up on the
So,
website.
yeah,
as
the
well.
same time I'm getting it
Yeah.
posted on the website, I'll just shoot an email
Yeah,
out.
you're copying, just copy the board
everybody
on
on
the
the
meeting that
board.
you sent to the
Mhm.
web administrator, right? Yeah,
great.
that works. Good. Excellent. So the next item was correspondence. We received a letter from Mr. Fornell regarding the Sisson area variance that I'll just read into the record. And this is addressed to the Town of Rochester ZBA chairman and members of the board. Concerned subject is the Sisson area variance. I've been watching the Zoom meetings with particular interest in the Sisson case. After appearing in town court over this matter in July 2021, Mr. Sisson appeared at the August 2021 ZBA meeting seeking to negotiate with the ZBA as to what would be acceptable for his illegally constructed accessory structures consisting of a poured concrete slab and an 18-by-30 shed. Mr. Sisson was told by the ZBA chairman that he would have to submit a new plan, and the ZBA would then determine whether or not a variance would be approved. He wrangled quite a bit before offering to take off 4 feet from one end of the shed, thereby lessening the requested side yard variance. In my judgment, that 4 feet does not constitute in any way a significant change from what the ZBA rejected 2.5 years ago. Be that as it may, Mr. Sisson has not turned in another plan to the code enforcement office as he needed to continue the ZBA process. Therefore, I request the ZBA send Mr. Sisson a letter indicating his responsibility to submit a variance application with proposed change to the CEO. I also request a letter be sent to the town court updating it on this case to include a copy of the ZBA letter sent to citizens. I'm aware of no prohibition of the ZBA updating the town court to a pending case before it so that it may have all the latest information. I'm sorry, I've heard that kind of confused. Without sending out these letters, it's easy to see the reason this town has routinely neglected zoning infractions. They simply get lost in the shuffle. It's about time the town of Rochester gets serious about zoning infractions, especially ones as blatant as this case is. For the benefit of the new ZBA member and to refresh the memory of those who sat on the board during that case, in the fall of 2018, Mr. Sisson visited the CEO and asked what needed to be done to put a shed in his front yard. He was told he needed 2 variances, front and side yard, and then obtain a building permit and undergo inspections. Mr. Sisson proceeded to pour a slab and erect the structure without either the variances or a building permit. When later Mr. Sisson's violation was reported, violation notice letter from the CEO to Sisson dated 7 January 2019. After Mr. Sisson was finally served, he returned to the ZBA in February 2020 and offered nothing new other than to level a charge that the decision rendered by the ZBA contained an error, to wit, the Sisson property had been in the family for 100 years. That is not true. For Sisson lot was created in 1999, nor was it relevant to the decision. In addition, Mr. Sisson claimed he never got the decision mailed to him. The ZBA secretary confirmed the decision had been sent out. The ZBA attorney established the fact that Mr. Sisson had been present at the meeting during which the decision was read out loud. The ZBA attorney further stated that Mr. Sisson had a certain amount of time to appeal that decision, but had not. 2 years and 2 months after the denial of the Sisson variance request issued by the ZBA, Mr. Sisson got called into town court July 2021 and subsequently put in an appearance with the ZBA in August of 2021. He did not follow up in September nor October and is required in order to have his new plan considered, public hearing noticed, and held a decision rendered. I can easily see simply not showing backup will allow his blatant violation to go uncorrected. So please, a letter to Mr. Sisson outlining his obligation to resubmit a variance request and a letter to the court updating it on the Sisson open case. Thank you for considering this matter. Steve Fornell, Untitled, New York. So that was the correspondence. Next piece is approval of the minutes from the October meeting.
We didn't discuss this letter at all.
Well, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. As far as us sending anything to the court, I don't think it's up to us. It's up to Jerry. And the violation started a long time ago, and Jerry, it's up to him to take care of it, not us. So that's my
I
opinion.
agree, Charlie. We're not an enforcement board.
Yeah.
We make a decision and then it's enforced by the code enforcement office. If they wanted records from our file, they could send us a subpoena, we'd certify the records, and they could bring them to court. They could call you folks who are on the board as witnesses, anything like that. But we don't submit information to the court, and I don't think the
And
court
Steve
would
should know that.
like to see that.
He's was up,
Right.
made up some of these rules.
Yeah.
Well, those
And-
rules
and if-
aren't from us, they're from, that's court rules.
Yeah, but I mean, the zoning and stuff, he was on the zoning committee when he did this. And he was on the zoning board for a while and got mad or something, I guess, and resigned. So,
Yeah, but I totally agree with you, Shirley. That's the code enforcement office's
Right.
purview, and if they need certified records from us, they can ask us for them.
And Charlie, I know later in the agenda, I did put in a discussion on the system
well,
application as well, so that we can discuss that. And also see if we can come to
all right.
a consensus on that.
I could have waited if you would have said that.
Well, that's kind of a separate thing, though, than this
Yeah,
letter. Shirley.
It is different, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think you're right, we're addressing the concern, and I don't think we're able to send a note to the court. I would agree with that, so. Mike or Bill?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Approval of the minutes for October. Has everyone had an opportunity to read them?
I have, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second them.
Do you want to roll call for that? Sure. Right, so Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Berenger,
Yes.
Mr. Wassel,
Yes.
Chair Cyrus.
Yes. The last item you'll see in the packet is the 2022 meeting dates. I don't see any dates off the top that seem to conflict with any holidays.
Not too many holidays on
And we're
Thursdays.
sure they're all Thursdays. Okay. And again, is 6 o'clock still?
Yep. I guess. It's hard, but I think I can do it.
Well, we can make it 5 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good, Bill. You do that. Then I know I'm not coming.
So I'll make a motion to accept these as the meeting dates. for next year.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Berenger.
Yes.
Mr. Wassel,
Yes.
Chair Cyrus.
Yes. So we'll have to publish the dates. as well.
Yes.
Okay. That was the easy stuff. Right? Okay, so Peter Schneider's request for an area variance. This was for a fence on County Route 6. She has withdrawn that application.
I saw it. Got the email, but then I seen it on the,
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that we were all on the same page and that it was part of the record that she did. Any further discussion on that? No? Next application is John Sturgis area variance on 442 Towpath Road. We're at the point where we've closed the public session, so it's really up to the board to discuss it and to see if we're ready to render any decision on that. So Bill, I know you had put forward a motion, and Charlie, I apologize for jumping past you. I usually go to you first to see you, man.
go ahead, that's all right, go ahead.
Yeah. You had offered up a motion to deny last meeting, so clearly you had some
Well, number one, it's in a
ideas about
flood
it.
zone. It's in a flood zone. And we got that one letter from that one place also that recommended that we didn't.
Right.
That was two main reasons right there.
ECC.
Okay, yeah, so I think, my recollection is that part of the property may be in a flood zone, but the building itself was not. So just from a point of clarification, I think, do we have the map handy to confirm that? Does anybody else recall it being in a flood zone or out of the flood zone?
I don't
So-
remember it being in a flood
I
zone.
think that was a flood zone, but within it, but the variances, because they're.
Because of the high
The
water.
variance is in the
Because-
flood zone.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry?
right, the
The
variance,
variance is in the flood zone. Yeah, I got,
there's the flood zone and then there's the
The high water.
setback zone from the high
Right,
water.
right.
Right.
And they're two different things.
Spring Bank here. And the house.
I don't think it's in the flood zone.
The variance itself is in the flood zone? Is that what you?
No, I don't think it is in the flood
Yeah.
zone. I think it was, the variance is from the high water line. It's encroaching on the high water line. at 100
Mhm.
foot.
That's the way I recall it. So, okay, so it was, I'm sorry, Bill, you said it was the flood zone. And what was the other?
And the
item?
letter that we got,
The
ECC.
the ECC here, okay. Charlie, now I'll jump back over to you. Any thoughts on it?
No, I read this.
Michael?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this one for quite a while, and I think we have because it's a tough one. I think there are a lot of environmental or ecological sensitivities about the lot. We've touched on those. I've read in the motion about those sensitivities. And the variance that is being requested was pretty substantial. And when I'm thinking about a variance in a ecologically sensitive lot, the percentages come down in my mind. They should come down in my mind. This isn't your average everyday lot, where maybe, you could have a 20% variance and be able to justify it. Here, we're talking about a stream. We're talking about flora that's very sensitive. The ECC talked about it, and it's in this motion in front of us. So that's been one of the tricky things, one of the difficult things in coming to some sort of decision. Also should point out in the ECC letter, I thought there was a lot of good things in the letter. They did mention that there was a shed that is not part of the plan. And I know that the ECC did focus on that a little bit, like gas cans, oil cans floating away down the stream. So there isn't a shed to worry about here in the plan that we're looking at. So I view that as a mitigating factor. And I guess the last thing for me is the applicant has stated unequivocally every time he's appeared here about his intent to maintain the property, the ecological, important shrubs that are there. He's talked about blueberries. He's convinced me anyway that he's going to be responsible, a responsible landowner. And when talking about taking trees down, he had good reasons, I felt, to take the trees down that he intends to. He wants to protect the riparian buffer. All those things are really important, when I'm looking at this proposal. So it's tough because I believe the variances should be limited in such an ecologically sensitive area. At the same time, the applicant has expressed, and I believe them, that they're going to be responsible
But
landowners.
can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
You got to realize this stays with the land forever. Even after he's done with it, it goes on to somebody else and somebody else. Are they going to do the same thing?
Yeah, no,
That's something you got to consider there too.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah. So for me, I think my feelings were somewhat similar. I think that the applicant certainly demonstrated that he at least has plans to care for the land and put it back in place, minimize whatever disruption he causes to it. Where I was kind of going back and forth was, if we put conditions in there that are severe, the applicant can say, well, that's fine. I'm just going to build it outside of that variance and do whatever I want. And then, not really care about the conditions that we put in it if we make them too severe. If we don't put in any conditions, then, again, you're left on your own and it's acting on good faith. Although I think the applicant's demonstrated that, his intentions are good to take care of it. So it's just the same way. It's the balance of, do you get too strict? Do you don't get strict enough? How do you protect the environment without being overbearing with it, right? So that was my piece. So I have a motion that I could put out, and then we can discuss it further based on the motion. So, typically the first piece of the motion is, again, the boilerplate showing the location and the documents that we've considered, and these are all part of the record, so I'll just switch to the meat of it, right? So the Town of Rochester Board of Appeals hereby makes the following findings with respect to specific criteria for area variances set forth the Town Code Local Law 140-12. That an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the area variance. And I think there's no significant change in the character of the neighborhood or the district by this. So and, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. I think yes, the proposed dwelling has yet to be constructed. The opportunity to redesign and or reposition the structure in a way that either eliminates or reduces the need for a variance is feasible. Whether the requested area variance is substantial. And in this, I've really broken this down into 3 different variances. The side yard variance for the proposed dwelling is 6.5 feet. This is moderate at 13% of the 50-foot requirement and below the allowable maximum for 50% side yard variance for a non-conforming lot per section 140-43, use of existing non-conforming lots of record. So the next finding, I think, is a yes. The requested variance to the high watermark setback to accommodate the proposed porch is 19 feet, a significant value of 19% of the required 100 feet. And again, I think the significant goes up when you start talking about things by the water, similar to what I think that's a good finding, Mike. So, and then the proposed dwelling without the porch would require a 5-foot variance to the high watermark for a setback of 5% of the 100-foot requirement. And for me, I didn't think that's significant on it, so I've checked the no box on that. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. Yes, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Hudson Valley Natural Resource Mapper indicates the subject property is within an area known for rare plants, rare aquatic and terrestrial animals. The woodland and forest on the surrounding and surrounding the property is classified as a core forest, indicating it is especially important for maintaining habitats for sensitive wildlife. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but not necessarily preclude the granting of a variance. Yes. The topography and waterfront location of the lot is not peculiar to the district. The hardship results from the proposed placement and size of the dwelling and porch. So the determination on these factors. So the motion is, it's hereby determined the Town of Rochester Zoning Board of Appeals, the request for an area variance for a side yard setback of 6.5 feet is granted with the condition that the proposed dwelling is constructed with a footprint consistent with the site plan as submitted by the applicant in a document labeled 2021-719 Sturgis site plan magnified. It is hereby determined by the Town of Rochester Zoning Board of Appeals, the request for an area variance from the high watermark setback of 19 feet is denied. It is hereby determined by the Town of Rochester Zoning Board of Appeals, the request for an area variance for the high watermark setback of 5 feet is granted with the condition the proposed dwelling is constructed with a footprint consistent with the site plan as submitted by the applicant in the document labeled 2021-719 Sturgis site plan. I think the determination is consistent with the Town of Rochester comprehensive plan concerning protections for environmental quality and natural resources by minimizing the disturbance to wildlife and vegetation. Let's see, there's a couple of grammar errors on there that we'll clean up. So it's a late night.
You want to make that motion?
I would make a motion to approve this motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussions?
Does that mean you can't have the porch and stuff the way you read that?
Right. So the porch would be out because that infringes, that goes out past that. But the corner of the building, so
Right on the edge of it. but-
yeah, the corner of the building is on the edge of the 5 feet and the other side of the building is on the 6.5 foot. And the specificity behind saying, as it looks in the drawing, is, if you give the 6.5 feet on the drawing, it's for the corner of a building. I don't want the whole building moved over the 6.5 feet, or the whole thing moved back to 5 feet, right? So it's just stick with the,
He asked him at one of the meetings if he could do away with that porch.
I don't recall.
It came up.
It came up and he said no.
I mean, it's a 19% variance. It's in that sensitive kind of environment. I think it's pretty significant. Yeah, I agree with that.
Charlie Bill sometime to read it. So.
All right.
You good?
Yeah.
You good? So, roll call vote.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Berenger,
No.
Mr. Bossel,
Yes.
and Chair Cyrus.
Yes. So the motion passes. And it'll be available to the applicant when?
This is new for me. I haven't had a motion yet with you guys,
Okay.
so.
How long will it take you to?
New to me too.
Type it up and have it come down and sign.
Yeah, I mean, you have it typed
It's
up.
pretty much completed. It's just a matter of,
You're getting a letter out with the motion.
May I ask a question? Sure. And that is if I shift the position of the building further back and then resubmit the site plan. can that
We could
be
reapply.
Yeah, you can reapply, certainly. Yeah.
Just have to
Try and, so what I'm hearing you asking is, can I take the variance in the front of the building to the front yard rather than the rear yard? If you shift it forward, right?
Well, yeah, to shift the building further towards the street
Yes.
for this kind of thing.
what does that do to the side yard setback though?
I'm sorry.
Does that change the side yard setback?
Well, we have to see.
We have to see what he comes up
Change
with.
them
Well,
all.
if you shift it towards the street, you actually can shift a little further upstream. But it's further back from the high water line.
Right.
Or the stream. So
You can
it
certainly
tends
come in
to-
with another application.
It just fits better. It can fit better. So let me reconsider doing that. And I'll submit another application.
Yeah. So this one will be in place for you
Because
regardless.
I do want the porch.
Right.
I mean, to not have the porch in that area.
I remember we spoke about
Yeah,
that.
I remember
Yeah,
speaking about
so-
that, and you want to look at the street.
Sure.
So you have to file this with the town clerk within 10 days.
Okay.
So this has been passed. I don't know what procedure you use if you sign the letter.
Yeah. I just come down and sign.
So-
When you have it available, I'll sign. So
Okay.
should be
Yeah,
available.
so I mean, it can be used like as is.
definitely be available before,
Tuesday.
probably, yeah, before
Let's
Tuesday.
call it Tuesday. Okay.
Okay.
And then we just, I know Brianna, you and, so we just mail it to you, Mr. Sturgis? Is that-
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you could email. it. I mean,
All
Yeah,
right.
we've been
Right,
communicating.
and then
that,
you
Okay.
just,
Very good.
Bring it over to Kate. File it
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
her.
but I'm going to resubmit.
town
All
clerk.
right. So you should have it by Tuesday next week.
I think it's a moot point if I resubmit something.
Okay.
Would you given me some guidelines?
Yeah.
We could have talked about this earlier, but I guess it was general right to do that. I could rethink it. Because I've rethought this already a couple of times based on the discussion.
See, and if you didn't keep coming back, we'd miss you because you've been part of the meetings for so long now.
Thank you. So,
All right. Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
So next order of business is the Flamingo.
Sounds like a really fancy dish, doesn't it? A fancy restaurant. I'll have the.
Okay. All right, this is for a lot line variance on Ski Slope Road where the cabin is sitting
On the line.
on the line, right? Not the best spot to be.
I hate it when that happens.
Charlie, any thoughts on this one?
I think we could improve it.
Okay. Bill?
I feel the same way on that.
Michael?
You know, I do. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
okay.
wrote, I have a
You
magic
wrote
motion
it up.
here.
So I would tend to agree. I think it's actually a positive for the area that,
Yeah.
defining that a little bit better, that whole district is a bit jumbled and it certainly would be beneficial. So if you have a motion you'd like to present.
I do. We'll just read off, okay. So. Okay, the town of Rochester Zoning Board of Appeals hereby makes the following findings with respect to the specific area for area variances as set forth in the town's code law, law 125.18A2. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. I have no here to that question and with a finding, approval of the area variance will not negatively impact the surrounding community or pose any apparent detriment to neighboring properties. The applicants are beginning with 2 non-conforming lots and the proposed variance will result in 2 non-conforming lots. That's a fancy way of saying no change. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible to the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. And again, I say no to that with a finding, the alternative method that was considered to achieve the sought after benefit involves physically moving the cabin. The applicant described challenges in the topography and the existing natural barrier comprised of trees that make this approach impractical. In addition, the physical environment of the lot would be disturbed as septic, well, and utility lines would need to be relocated. Item 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. So I said no to this. And the finding, the requested lot line adjustment is not deemed substantial. One lot will be reduced from 1.6 acres to 1.2 acres. And the adjoining lot will be increased from 0.57 acres to 1 acre. Both begin as non-conforming and end as non-conforming. However, it is noted that the adjustment will result in a less lopsided and more balanced lot configuration between the two. This offsetting change in lot lines, when taken together, results in a minimal variance overall. Also noteworthy is the fact that this lot line adjustment would result in establishing an approximate 40-foot side yard setback from the newly established lot line to the cabin. The current lot line travels directly through the cabin, leaving no side yard setback whatsoever. The proposed lot line adjustment would cure this shortcoming and result in a setback consistent with the town of Rochester zoning law, schedule of district regulations pertaining to lands located in an R2 low-density residential district, which calls for a 40-foot side yard setback. Item 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. I said no with a finding, moving the lot line as proposed will not have no adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. And finally, number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And I said no to this as well, with a finding, the applicant purchased the lots in question with their lot lines drawn and cabin already built. Nevertheless, given that the homes on each lot have separate wells, septic, and electricity, it appears reasonable to conclude that the applicant believed that there was no such issue with the lot lines at the time of purchase. Such an assumption, when made in good faith, as appears it was the case here, does not meet the ordinary definition of a self-created difficulty. This view is further supported by the fact that the original driveway features provided separate access to each respective property. Lastly, as mentioned above, the proposed variance would establish a side yard setback in keeping with town code. So I would make the proposal.
You should make that motion.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to grant this motion.
I'll second.
I just, before we, this is just a question. Earlier, the town code that was cited was by Jerry, the 125/18A2.
Right.
You know, typically we're in the 140s somewhere.
125 is subdivision. That's-
I can pull it up.
yeah.
So
I can read that off.
I just want to make sure we have the right citation in that. And then
I have it all set.
is the
And what they're
applicant?
looking for is a variance though, so I would,
Yeah.
I would.
14010, I think is
Yeah,
somewhere
I
in
see
there.
it.
125/18, it's to not reduce the ability of the lot from which the lot improvement parcel is taken or reconfigured to comply with the applicable development standards of this chapter.
I would say let's quote both, because that's how it came to us,
That's right,
but we have, it's a variance that they're seeking.
right.
And the variance,
Should be 140. Okay.
okay, here it is. Area variances are 140/66 C.
Okay.
Good.
Got it.
Ready to go with the roll?
Ready to go.
Okay,
That was the only amendment.
no problem. Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Mr. Wassel,
Yes.
Chair Sturgis.
Yes. Now, does the applicant have to go to the planning board as well for that?
I think that was discussed at the last meeting. I think they would have to apply for a lot line.
That 125/18
Yeah.
says planning
Yeah,
board.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
what that refers
Yeah,
to.
when
so
you
that's
send
what the
them the email
125
with this,
is.
let them know that, you know, they have another step,
No
right.
problem.
so that they're not
Thinking
thinking they're done and end up back. there.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you. for that. So, next item on the agenda was the Kevin Sisson area variance, so notwithstanding Mr. Fornell's comment, so this has been dragging for quite a while. We had asked him to revise his plan, he revised it on paper, yet he never submitted it to Jerry to get approval or denial on it. So all we really have in front of us at this point,
Nothing.
3 or 4 months later, is we have his original application. That's a mirror of the original application back in 2020 and in 2021 without changes. So
And there hasn't been any changes up there. It's like
I
25
heard
today.
when he was down here the last time, he was going to make changes.
But he hasn't
But he
yet.
hasn't.
And it's
He's
been
not
months.
gonna do it until he gets the authorization so that he get the okay so that he can do it.
Right, but what he has presented to this board is the same application that he presented last time that you denied.
Okay.
In order to rehear that exact application, one of you would have to make a motion to rehear it, and it would have to be a unanimous vote to rehear it. And typically that's not done
I
unless
don't
they
think
say,
he
I
wants the
forgot to give
same
you a-"
application. That's from the way I heard it. He wanted to change something onto it, you know, like 4 foot, 6 foot.
Right, and if
something
he
like
comes
that.
in with an application, you can look at that, because that's
Right,
a
right.
different
That's
application.
different.
But the
Absolutely.
one that he has in front of us has not changed, and he's left it out there for a number of months, August, September, October, 4 months now. Right, that's, you know, third of the year.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
without changes, so. You know, my thoughts on it are in this motion that I'll read. On July 23rd, 2021, the code enforcement officer issued a determination letter zoning permit 21-373 stating that Mr. Sisson's property is in an R2 district. It's plus or minus 0.28 acres, erected a 30 by 18 garage. The garage did not meet the setback for front and side yards. Mr. Sisson met with the ZBA on August 19th, 2021, and stated there was no significant change to the building. Mr. Sisson revised the site plan at the meeting, showing a reduction in the building footprint from 30 by 18 to 26 by 18. Mr. Sisson was advised by the Zoning Board of Appeals to resubmit the plan to the CEO for determination. As of November 18th, 2021, a new application has not been submitted to the CEO. The ZBA has before it application number 21-373, which does not vary from Mr. Sisson's prior application 19-03 AV. That was the one submitted on April 5th, 2019, and denied by the ZBA on May 16th, 2019. The denied application has not previously been reheard, which is key for us here. Because if it had been reheard, we can't rehear it.
Then it's that
Right.
automatically. Yeah.
But when he came back in 2020, there was no vote, there was no determination made, right? So this motion is to consider, we're gonna have sort of two parts of this. The first one is to consider the current application 21-373 as an appeal for the rehearing on the one that he submitted in 19. So I make the motion that we consider that as an appeal to rehear his original case.
So that's just a procedural
Right.
motion, not.
Correct.
So what's the,
So basically, this motion is saying what he's presented to us is the same thing,
Right.
asking us to look at it again.
so,
But he put it in
Deny it.
language that matches the statute.
I would propose we deny that. To
You don't
rehear,
want it,
to re,
no,
No,
First
that's the next motion.
that's the next one. The
Although,
fir-
if no one makes a motion to rehear, it's just over.
Well, I'd like to make the motion to rehear as well, because we're either going to consider it or we're gonna say, that's it.
I
Right?
have a question.
Well, only if somebody
Yeah.
does make a motion and there's, but
Right, but I think first we have to determine whether we want to consider the application that he has in front of us now as an application for a rehearing. Then, do we want to
and then
rehear
you'll
it?
say, do you want to rehear?
Right.
Okay, I see what you're
Uh,
saying.
okay,
Okay.
I thought we were doing a second
No,
part of
No.
that.
yeah, right,
Okay, fine.
so,
Yes.
Question, you said it has to be anonymous, and it's 5 members on our board. Does it have to be all 5 members?
Well, it has to be unanimous
has to be.
decision. One's not here.
Got a
You
quorum,
I
know,
think it has to
it
be,
doesn't specify,
Hmm.
but even if you have one person who votes no on having the rehearing, it does, then you're out. I have a feeling that's not going to be a problem tonight.
I believe it has to be unanimous amongst the members present and voting.
Yeah, when things have to be a majority, they have to be a majority of the entire board.
Right.
But
That's what I said.
why don't we put it through? Because
Yeah.
even if you have one no vote on the second motion, no matter what, it's dead.
So the first motion is to consider it to be reheard.
To say this is a
Let's make
rehearing
let's-
application.
Let's make a motion to hear the application.
Okay,
We can do it that way.
Hmm.
all right.
Wasn't that part one of?
No, that was part 2.
That was part 2.
Because in their motion, they didn't specifically say rehearing.
Right.
But you're determining that what they're looking for is a rehearing because that application has not changed from the first one. That's what you're saying, correct?
That's right. Confusing, right?
It's procedural, yeah.
Yeah, it's procedural, exactly. It's to say the application before, we've determined the application in front of us is an application for a rehearing.
Because we've already looked at this application and
Right.
denied it.
Yeah, we've gone through that one and denied it, let it stay that way.
Yes, I
So,
agree.
but that's the second piece, right? So,
Sounds like we're skipping ahead.
yeah, so let's do the first piece.
Right,
first.
yeah, I think you're
Do we
right.
want to consider the application an application for a rehearing? That's
Of the
motion I'm making.
same,
Okay,
What you're saying is, yeah, these two applications, the old one and the new one are the same.
that it,
Right.
They are.
that it meets the requirements of an application
For a rehearing.
for a rehearing.
Just
Okay.
saying that's the type of application. It's not saying you.
Was that a
are
motion?
approving it.
That is a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay.
For Nicole.
Mr.
Yeah.
Fisher.
For Nicole.
For
Is that all
I
right?
know.
For the first one, yes.
Yes,
Right.
Mr.
Mr.
Berenger.
Barrett,
Yes.
Mr. Watson,
Yes.
and Chair Cyrus.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Sorry about that.
now we've considered this
It's
this
confusing.
application an ask to be a rehearing. So for this one, if we want to rehear it, if it's a unanimous vote to rehear his case, he can present it as the 30 by 18 garage with the same setback variances and the same front side yard variances and all that.
No.
So
Let's make a, somebody make a.
So
Make a
I'm gonna
motion,
make a
no?
motion, I'm gonna make a motion to consider to rehear his appeal.
Right. Then you can all vote no. if
So-
that's what you'd like to do.
Is there a second to rehear his appeal?
Yeah. I'll second
Yes,
that.
okay. So now,
No.
Mr. Fisher.
Finally, right?
Mr. Barrett.
Shirley?
No.
Mr. Watson.
No.
And Chair Cyrus.
no,
Okay.
so that was unanimous the other way.
Bill, if they want to come in and make changes,
No, that,
they can make a new application with
Right.
changes.
what
and
I was
that's
concerned
it.
with, I thought he already had.
Yeah,
the
no,
4
he
foot
said
off.
he was going to,
Yeah.
but he never did. So just like Mr. Sisson, no, not
Mr.
Mr.
Sturgis.
Sisson. Mr. Sturgis, you'd think I would remember that name by now.
Yeah, right.
Just like Mr. Sturgis had said, can I come back? Same thing.
Right.
As long as it's a different application,
Right.
we'll hear it.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Good.
Okay, so please make sure we have a letter prepared for Mr. Sisson to sign that we send out, that we're sure he's gonna receive in a timely fashion this time. Sorry, I don't mean, only because we got pushback from him originally, I wanna make sure
I
that,
would send it out certified.
yeah,
Okay.
I think that would be the preferable. Okay. Any other business?
Don't have anything.
Can't think of it.
All right,
Make that motion, Charlie.
Motion to adjourn.
Come on, you guys. are
I'll
set.
second
You are.
Michael has seconded every motion
it.
today.
I'll second.
All right.
you're keeping track. huh?
That's my job.
So did
The meeting is
Isabel have her
adjourned.
baby? I assume she did, or she's very late.
I think she had to have, because the last time,
Right, she was doing like
She
2 or
was
3
here,
weeks,
yeah.
right? So, but who knows? So we don't know. She didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, so
Right.
we don't know.
I'll
She
She didn't report.
check in with her.
Check in.
I'll
yeah.
check in with her
It was a
tomorrow.